Hello, welcome all of you. Today we'll be discussing the last chapter of our ecology. That is the second chapter, which is called ecosystem. So this is the last chapter of our current zoology topics. Okay. What is ecosystem? It is an ecological system, a unit in our environment, which is always active, dynamic, constantly working. It is self-regulatory, controlling themselves, and they will be continuously undergoing changes. Despite these changes, they maintain their homeostasis. Okay, so ecosystem can be defined as the smallest unit of our biosphere, which is self-regulatory, self-controlling, and dynamic unit. Okay, this consists of both biotic factors and abiotic factors. Biotic factors means all living things, and abiotic factors means non-living things. These two are all interdepending and interacting. Such a system of interdepending and interacting biotic and abiotic factors, which are all dynamic and self-regulatory and self-sustaining, is called an ecosystem. See, the whole world can be considered to be as a very giant ecosystem. But for the ease of our study, we are all grouping into so many smaller and smaller units. Ecosystems can be classified into two, mainly terrestrial and aquatic. So an ecosystem may be classified based upon the medium. If it is land, it is called terrestrial ecosystem. And if it is aquatic, water, we call it as aquatic ecosystem. Okay. Forest, grasslands, desert are all typical examples for terrestrial. A pond, a stream, a river, and an ocean, they will be all coming under aquatic. These aquatic ecosystems can be again classified into, divided into freshwater and marine ecosystems. Okay, freshwater and marine ecosystems. And these freshwater ecosystems include ponds, lakes, dams, etc., which are divisible into two groups, namely running, okay, and stagnant water bodies. Running water bodies are called lotic, and stagnant are called limnetic. Okay, so we can classify ecosystems according to the nature of the medium. Ecosystem can be again classified into a natural ecosystem, which is created by nature, maintained by nature. So, for example, a river, a forest, a grassland, they are created and maintained by the nature. At the same time, you can also have artificial or man-made ecosystems. For example, a farmland, a vegetable garden, or a lotus pond, or an aquarium. So these are all man-made. Okay. Again, they may be classified based upon their size. It may be a very huge ecosystem as a case of an ocean, or it may be a very small one like a garden or a lotus pond or a small aquarium. So we can classify ecosystems accordingly. What or may be the type of ecosystem, that ecosystem should have both abiotic and biotic factors which are all coming in mutual interaction and interdependence. Then only we can call it as an ecosystem. Okay. Ecosystems are having interactions of biotic and abiotic components. Because of this interaction, the physical and chemical nature of that ecosystem will be slightly different from each other. So the physical structure will be unique for each and every ecosystem. You may have two ponds, but on minor details, they will be different. What are the two important features by which they will be showing that uniqueness? See, one, species composition. Each ecosystem will be having its unique species composition. What are the different types of living things? How many of them are living? What is their number, etc. Okay. Identification and enumeration of plants and animal species of an ecosystem gives the species composition. You identify what are the plants, what are the animals, what are their numbers. That will differ from ecosystem to ecosystem. Number two, stratification. These biotic factors are not occupying the same level. Some may be present at the top, some may be present in the middle, some may be in the bottom, like that. You take a forest, some big trees will be there, which will be growing very high, and it will be making a canopy, and in that shade, you may be having a second layer of organisms, trees growing, and again there will be smaller plants growing at the bottom. Similarly, in a lake, some plants may be floating in the surface, some may be submerged, and some may be at the bottom. So they are not occupying the same level. They occupy different levels. That is what is called stratification. Vertical distribution of different species occupying different level is called stratification. So in these two, each ecosystem is unique. Okay. Now, the components of ecosystem can be seen to function as a unit. What are the components? You have abiotic factors and biotic factors. Abiotic factors include non-living things. Okay. These abiotic factors include physical parameters or physical features like light, heat, that is temperature, wind. All such features will be coming under the physical factors of abiotic. Second one include the chemical factors. It include pH. What are the salts that are dissolved or present? What are the gases that are available? Such things. So they are all having a profound influence on the life of living things. They go on changing And the biotic community take all these things for their living and release them back into the environment. So you are having a close interaction between abiotic factors and biotic factors. Now, what are the biotic factors? B. These biotic factors include all types of living things. These biotic factors are of three types. Namely, you are having producers who are all autotrophs, who are all producing the energy for the survival of that ecosystem. So there are all mainly photoautotrophic green pigmented plants and green pigmented other organisms, small diatoms, etc. in aquatic environment, algae, etc. Okay. They will be producing organic material. Then, by eating these producers, animals are getting energy. So, animals can be called as consumers. They cannot produce their own energy, but they have to depend on plants directly or indirectly. So, we call them as consumers. When both producers and consumers are dead, their body are decomposed and converted back to abiotic world. Okay, they are called the decomposers because they bring about the decomposition. And it is by decomposition that these nutrients are cycled back. The nutrients are going back to the abiotic. Okay, so a continuous flow of material between abiotic and biotic factors are occurring in an ecosystem. That is characteristic. So the components of an ecosystem are the abiotic factors and biotic factors. Biotic factors are producers, consumers, decomposers, etc. Okay, and they interact in different ways. When they interact in different ways, there will be a number of important functions the ecosystem are performing, like productivity, that is production, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycling. And how to understand the nature of an ecosystem? The ideal ecosystem that we can take an example for studying the basic principles involved in ecosystem is a small pond. Why we take a small pond? Mainly because pond is small, so it is very easy to study. Secondly, in a pond, the factors are almost stable, comparatively stable than many other ecosystems. So, since the factors are stable for a comparatively longer period of time, we can take and study that pond in detail. So, we take pond as an example for ecosystem. Remember, pond is a typical example for stagnant freshwater ecosystem. So, limnetics. So, the pond is coming under limnetic type of ecosystem, that is stagnant freshwater ecosystem. There you will be having producers, consumers, decomposers, abiotic factors, biotic factors. What amount of light it is getting, what much of heat it is having on an average, what much of water is there, what will be the depth, all comes under the physical parameters of that ecosystem. Now, how much of nutrients are dissolved in water, what is the pH of the water, how much gases are dissolved. So, they will be also coming under the chemical parameters, chemical factors. Okay. Now, you have producers. Producers may be of different types. Some may be floating in the surface waters. They may be very small. Some may be submerged. They are not the surface, not visible to the surface, but just below the surface, so that they will be getting light. And some may be rooted. Okay. There may be submerged, or some may be emergent. So all of them are producers. And you may have animals freely swimming in the water, or they may be seen attached to the plants near the shore or in the shore. You may have organisms which are swimming, which may be present in the bottom. All of them will be consumers. And mainly in the bottom, you will be having the fungi, bacteria, etc., which are all acting as the decomposers. So you will be having all these components of an ecosystem even in a small pond. Okay. Now, though pond is very small, it is performing all the functions that are not performed by even a giant ecosystem. So it is having all the components and is performing all the functions that is seen or that is performed by any other ecosystem. So we can take pond, though it is very small and convenient, as our type study of ecosystem. Okay. Now, what are the functions an ecosystem is performing? One, productivity. That is, plants are taking sunlight and using that sunlight, they are producing organic matter. Okay. The amount of organic matter produced by plants by photosynthesis in a unit area is called production. It is called primary production. So primary is the most important one. The amount of organic matter, that is called biomass, produced per unit area over a unit time by plants, that is producers by photosynthesis, is called the production. Okay. It is usually expressed in two ways. How much of biomass is produced? So in terms of biomass, we can tell that so much of gram, okay, so much of gram per meter square. Gram per meter square in terms of biomass weight, or it can be in terms of energy. How much of energy? Kilocalories of energy per meter square. So we can express the production in these two ways. Primary production is the production of organic matter by plants, by producers, by photosynthesis. Now, to compare the production of two ecosystems, we have to have the rate at which production is occurring. The rate at which production is occurring is called productivity. The rate of biomass production is called productivity. How we will be mentioning it? This is per unit area. Now, per unit time. So much of biomass or energy per unit area per unit time. So the rate at which biomass is produced. So what is the biomass produced and what is the unit time? You divide that, rate of biomass will be obtained by dividing the production by time. So rate of production or productivity. There are two types of primary productivity. Total rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis is called gross primary productivity. The rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis is called GPP. Of this, the plants will be utilizing a considerable amount of energy for their own activities. Okay, so how much I will be saving, how much these plants are all converting them and storing in their body. Simply I can say that what is my total salary? That is what I earn. Okay, per unit. Say for example, in 1 month or in 1 year, I cannot save all that money, put it in a bank, okay, or give it to my family members because I have to maintain myself. So some amount I will be taking for maintaining, then only I can work. That energy that I use for my own. So energy that is used by the plants produces for their own activity. That is called respiration. So a considerable amount of energy is lost or utilized for respiration. What is remaining is called net primary productivity. So after meeting my expenses, what is left, I will give it to my family members so that they can use that money for their living. Okay? Or I can deposit in my bank account. That's what I am saving. So this amount is called NPP, net primary productivity. So net primary productivity is the amount of energy or biomass that is available for consumers to live. Okay, so it is available for biomass for consumption by consumers who are all the herbivores and decomposers. Clear? So my GPP is not important. My NPP is important for my family members. What I give them after my expense, that is very important. So net primary productivity is the available biomass for the consumption of heterotrophs, that is herbivores, decomposers, etc. Okay, now when the consumers are eating the biomass that is stored in producers, they will convert a part of their energy into their body mass. They will grow, their biomass will grow. See how we are all gaining weight by eating. What we eat indirectly or directly plant material. Okay, by eating our weight is increasing, our biomass is increasing. That biomass that we are producing is by eating the energy that is stored, biomass that is stored by the plants. So the consumers are producing organic matter. That organic matter production is called secondary productivity. The rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. That is called secondary productivity. So primary productivity, the rate of production of biomass or organic matter by plants, by photosynthesis. Secondary is formation of organic matter by consumers. So which is more important? The primary, because it is very huge and what is left over is given to the consumers, and using that the consumers are growing, their biomass is increasing. So secondary productivity is lesser and primary productivity is not same in all ecosystems. Why? Because primary productivity depends upon one, plant species inhabiting any particular area. All plants are not having the same ability to produce organic matter. So what type of species is there? Then it depends upon environmental factors. 3, availability of nutrients. And 4, photosynthetic capacity of plants. All plants are not having the same photosynthetic capacity. Some will be very efficient, whereas others are very poor in their photosynthesis. Let us see how we can understand that. On the whole of the world, the annual net primary productivity of the whole biosphere is 170 billion tons. Remember, we always take the dry weight, not wet weight, because the wet weight goes on changing. Today, say for example, you are having 10 tons. Tomorrow, it may be 9.5 tons. What happened? Water gets evaporated. So, the values goes on decreasing. So, it is better to take the dry weight, which is fixed. In the whole of the world, we have 170 billion tons of organic matter produced. Okay, out of this 170 billion tons, the sea accounts for 2/3 surface area. The whole earth surface, 2/3 of the earth surface is covered by sea, but it accounts for only 55% of the total, 55 billion tons of the 55 billion tons of the $55 billion tons. That accounts for just 32%. Though sea accounts for 2/3 surface area, it is responsible for only 1/3 of the total productivity. Whereas land occupies only 1/3. Okay, but it is responsible for the remaining 115 billion tons of organic matter. That is almost 68%. So land is having more contribution in the annual productivity. Why? Because land is having the most advanced types of plants, dicots. Their efficiency is very high. Phototrophic efficiency or photosynthetic efficiency is very high. They are all advanced and nutrients are available in plenty and they have advanced machinery for photosynthesis. Because of these reasons, in land, production is very high, productivity is very high. Okay. Now, coming to the second important feature, which is called decomposition. Is it clear up to this level? Now, what is decomposition? Breaking of complex organic material into simple ones. When plants, animals, etc. become dead. See, how long these plants and animals can keep their biomass within them? Only till they become dead. Once they become dead, their body becomes the raw material for decomposition. Even before that, the excreta that is falling on the earth's surface, or the leaves, flowers, fruits, etc., that is falling on the earth's surface, they are all subjected to decay. So, anything that acts as the raw material for decomposition is called detritus. It is called detritus. There are two types of detritus. What are they? Above the ground detritus. It is called litter fall. That is falling above the ground. dead bodies. Similarly, the excreta, they're all leaves, etc. of plants or damaged twigs. Okay, they will be falling out the surface of the ground. They will be forming what is called litter fall. At the same time, the root part, which is lying below. Okay, so that forms below the surface detritus, which is called root detritus. So anything which acts as the raw material for decomposition is called detritus. There are a total of 5 important events occurring. Let us see what they are all. There are some animals that eat, that break down large sized components into small size. They are called detritivores, which are all eating detritus. It is called detritivore. They eat detritus and convert them into smaller fragments. That is called fragmentation. Large sized particles are converted into smaller ones. So, for example, earthworms, they eat on these leaves, etc., and are converted into small sized ones. Now, the soluble organic material present in them will get dissolved in water, and as the rainwater goes to the lower layers of the soil horizons, this soluble organic matter will be also going along with them. This is what is called leaching. They will be leached away. So they go to the deeper layers of the soil. And the third event is enzymatic. Okay, enzymatically, with the help of enzymes, large, complex macromolecules, organic molecules are broken down into simple molecules. That's called catabolism. So, we are having 3 events. What are they? Fragmentation, leaching, and catabolism. These 3 are all simultaneously occurring to or occurring on the detritus. So, detritus undergoes these 3 types of actions simultaneously. And what is the net effect? The next 2 events are occurring in soil. What are they? These 3 events are occurring in detritus. Detritus undergoing these 3 activities, and as a result of that, they may be converted to humus. What is humus? A brown organic material which is a colloid. Since they are all colloid, they will resist bacterial action. And because of their resistance to bacterial action, what nutrients are present in them are not easily broken away by bacterial action. So they will be available in soil for long time. This humus formation is called humification. So as a result of humification, you will be having a very thin layer of organic matter present on the surface of soil, which is very fertile. In the second event, you will be having humus gradually, very slowly converted into inorganic materials, which is called mineralization. As a result of that, you will be having carbon dioxide released, water, and minerals, inorganic minerals. So, that complex organic material is finally converted into carbon dioxide, water, and inorganic minerals. That is called mineralization. So humidification and mineralization are occurring in soil so that you will be having humus and finally it is converted into simple inorganic minerals. Okay. So these are the 5 important events that are all occurring during decomposition. Remember, decomposition is essentially a aerobic process. It requires oxygen and this rate of decomposition will be also depending upon 2 important factors. Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process and we are having 2 important factors that control. What are they? One is the chemical composition of the detritus. Why? Because if the detritus is made up of very hard material like lignin, chitin, etc., or cellulose, the rate of decomposition will be slow. Instead, if it is very rich in soluble, organic, nitrogenous materials, then faster will be the rate of decomposition. So what is the chemical by which these detritus are made up of? That is number 1. 2, climatic factors. Why the climate is important? Climate is not directly controlling the rate of decomposition, but it is controlling the growth of decomposers. Decomposition is brought about by bacteria and fungi, and for the growth of the bacteria and fungi, we need warm and humid condition. So if the conditions are warm and humid, the rate of decomposition will be very high. So number 2 is climatic condition. Soil moisture, temperature, that is humidity in atmosphere, soil moisture and temperature are the most important climatic factors that regulate the decomposition through their effect on the activities of the soil microbes. Warm and moist environment always favor decomposition. Okay, this is the reason why if we are all keeping our food items in refrigeration under low temperature, they are not putrefied, they are not damaged. Animals that are, or human beings who are all dead as a part of their mountaineering activities, their body will be preserved in the snow for years together. So, in low temperature, in freezing temperature, microbial action is not occurring and so decomposition is not occurring. So, anaerobic condition inhibit decomposition resulting in organic material building up. So, organic material is not converted into simple inorganic nutrients. Instead, they become accumulated. So, if death occurs in polar areas, the body become buried in snow, no action will be occurring. It is not decomposed. Okay, so the organic matter is there accumulated. Number 3 is energy flow, which is very, very important in the sense that it is that energy that is maintaining any system. Just like organisms, this ecosystem is continuously working, and for its working, a continuous source, continuous supply of energy is needed. And from where they get energy? Almost all ecosystems are getting their energy from sun, except for a very few deep hydrothermal vents where energy is obtained from the earth crust. In all of this, energy comes from sun. Okay, only a very small part of the energy from the sun reaches the earth atmosphere. As that energy is reaching our atmosphere, let us see what is happening. The solar energy, only a small part is reaching atmosphere at surface. Okay. So that energy that is reaching the Earth's surface is called incident solar radiation. It is called incident solar radiation. Only a small part of the energy of the sun reaches the Earth's surface. And of that, only 50% is available for plants, which is called photosynthetically active radiation. 50% of the incident solar radiation is photosynthetically active. What happened to the remaining 50%? That is lost. As energy passes through the atmosphere, most of them will be scattered, or it may be absorbed, or it may be reflected. The clouds may reflect the energy back, or gases and water vapor will be absorbing them, or because of the dust particles and other clouds present in the atmosphere, it may become scattered. So 50% of the energy is lost. Okay. So only 50% of the incident solar radiation will be photosynthetically active. And of that, only 10%, okay, 2 to 10% of the power plants capture. Plants are taking only maximum 10%, 2 to 10% of the power. And this small amount of energy is running the entire world. So, all organisms are depending for their food on producers, which are the plants, either directly or indirectly. Now, let us see how this energy is flowing. So, it is the plants that are getting energy, 2 to 10% of the energy, and they will utilize it for producing organic matter, and they will utilize almost all their energy, or they will be utilizing some of their energy for their own activities, and only a very small part is left and converted as organic matter, that is NPP. Okay, we have 1.628%, 1.628% that is converted as NPP. 1.628% is NPP, which is available for consumers. These consumers will get only very small percent of energy, but that is sufficient. And in energy flow, there are two main things that you have to remember. Energy flow is always in single direction, unidirectional. That is one important point. Energy flows through the ecosystem and is then completely utilized. Energy never returns back. And energy is neither created nor destroyed. So what happened to that energy? It is utilized. It is converted from one form to another and then utilized. Thus, energy is always flowing through ecosystem following the laws of thermodynamics. Let us see what happens or what is the nature of the energy flow in detail. We are having the energy from sun, and that energy plants are taking. That energy falls on the plants, and plants are thus called producers because they produce organic matter. Okay, these producers are converting solar energy into chemical energy. So they are converting one form of energy into another. Solar energy converted into chemical energy. That's how they are building up organic material and stored within them. And now you are having the consumers coming and eating. Remember, when consumers are coming and eating on them, they will get energy. Who are those that feed directly on plants? They are all called primary consumers. They are all herbivores. Herbivores are not getting all the energy because some of the energy, most of the energy will be utilized by the plants for their own activities, their own respiratory activities. Okay. So, primary herbivores or primary consumers, which are the herbivores, will get some amount of energy. Okay. And they will use that energy for their own activities and they will be storing the other remaining energy in the form of biomass in their body. Now, these herbivores are eaten by the secondary consumers. Who are secondary consumers? Who feed on primary consumers. So they are all called carnivores. Primary carnivores. So primary carnivores are secondary consumers. And the primary consumers have already utilized some of their energy for their own respiration. What is left out alone will be given to the secondary consumers. And then when the top carnivore is coming, which is called the tertiary consumer. Tertiary consumer is secondary carnivore. Energy reaches them. Okay. And again, there is loss of some amount of energy here in the form of respiration. So, energy goes on decreasing. This is why I have drawn smaller boxes. The boxes become comparatively smaller because energy goes on decreasing. What happens to energy? Energy is utilized. And what little energy is remaining in the body of plants, primary consumers, secondary consumers, etc., when they die, their body becomes the detritus and they become available for eating by the detritivores. That's how detritivores are getting their energy. Okay, so from all these living things, detritivore will be getting, that is the decomposers. Detritivores, they are the decomposers. So, energy flows through the ecosystem and never is returning. It goes on decreasing. And there's a definite law stating that only 10% of the energy will be flowing from one to the next one. This is called 10% law or Lindman's law. Lindman's law. Okay. Thus, in an ecosystem, energy is flowing from one to another in an orderly fashion. In an ecosystem, several organisms are thus remaining connected by the process of eating and being eaten. That chain of organisms which are all connected together by the process of eating and being eaten is called a food chain. So, this is called a food chain. And the position of an organism in that food chain is called its trophic level. So, let us see. Plants are occupying the first trophic level because they directly get energy from sun. Primary consumers or herbivores are occupying the second trophic level. Secondary consumers are primary carnivores that occupy the third trophic level. And tertiary consumers or secondary carnivores occupy the fourth trophic level. And when energy is flowing from one trophic level to the next trophic level, roughly 10% of the energy is alone transferred. That is what is called 10% law or Lindman's law. Clear? So, energy goes on decreasing as it transfers from first to second, then to third and fourth trophic levels. So, when the energy reaching a trophic level goes on decreasing, that will determine how many organisms should be present at that trophic level, what will be their biomass. See, it is because of this energy that they are all living, they are all building organic materials. So, if the energy goes on decreasing, the number of organisms and their biomass will be also going on decreasing. So, in short, I can say that a food chain will be always a short one. It can never have more than 4 or 5. Why? Because the energy content goes on decreasing. As the energy content goes on decreasing, the number of organisms and their biomass goes on decreasing. So, it is the energy reaching a trophic level that controls both number of organisms there as well as their biomass. So, this is why the nature is controlling the different sizes of populations. Okay. What type of population, what number of that population, what is the number of that members in that population, and how much should be their biomass are all controlled by energy flow. There's a relation between the energy, the number and biomass of organisms in each trophic level. Now, in nature, there is no actually a food chain. Why? Because there are a number of organisms who can occupy more than one trophic level simultaneously. So, for example, a crow is coming and eating fruits, then it occupies the second trophic level. A crow is eating, say for example, a small animal. Okay. So, for example, it is eating a dead frog. Then it's a carnivore. It occupies the third or fourth trophic level, as the case may be. We also can occupy any trophic level except for the first one. When we are herbivores, we occupy the second trophic level. When we eat non-veg food, we may be either in the third or in the fourth trophic level. Okay, so we are all typical omnivores. So because of the presence of omnivores in nature, same organism can occupy different trophic levels, and so different food chains are interconnected. Such an interconnected system of food chains is called a food web. In nature, we are having only food webs. Okay, and the food web will be carrying energy to all trophic systems, all trophic levels of that ecosystem. Now, this basic idea that the energy flow will determine the biomass and number of organisms in each trophic level can be represented in the form of what is called a diagrammatic, a graphical representation, which is called ecological pyramids. We are having three main type of ecological pyramids. What are these ecological pyramids? Ecological pyramids are graphical representation of the relation between energy, number, and biomass of organisms of each trophic level. See, there are two types of food chains in a detritus food chain and grazing food chain. What is the detritus food chain, DFC? They begin with dead organic matter. The starting point is detritus. So it is made up of decomposers, which are heterotrophic organisms, mainly fungi and bacteria. So it is by feeding or degrading that organic matter that they get energy. So these organisms are also called saprotrophs. Okay. Decomposers secrete digestive enzymes that break down dead organic material into simple inorganic material that is then absorbed by them. The second one is grazing food chain. This grazing food chain is playing an important role in the transfer of energy in aquatic ecosystems. In terrestrial ecosystems, the most part of the energy is flowing as detritus food chain. Okay, what is grazing food chain? That starts from plants, and by grazing, the energy is reaching the animals. Okay, detritus food chain will be connected with the grazing food chain at some levels. So we'll be having omnivores, which will be connecting different food chains together. Thus, they will be having the food web. Okay, so you are having the different food chains. Okay, and here man will be in the tertiary consumer occupying the fourth trophic level, but you can have man also in any other except for the first trophic level. Only plants can, autotrophs can be in the first trophic level. Okay. Now, in each trophic level, there will be a certain mass of living material at a particular time, which is called standing crop. So it is the energy that is reaching the trophic level that determines the biomass, that is the standing crop. And the ecological pyramids are giving you a clear idea regarding the nature of the relation between these different trophic levels in an ecosystem. This is a pyramid of number. In constructing a pyramid, you are making rectangles which are proportional to that value. Say, for example, it is the individual. What is the total number of individuals in the first trophic level? And in constructing an ecological pyramid, you have to take into account two important things. One, it is the trophic level that we are all taking, not a particular species. So all the organisms coming under this trophic level should be taken into account. Okay. So for example, if you are taking the number, pyramid of number, what is the total number of very small and very big? All producers, consumers. So everybody of that trophic level should be taken into account. Because a trophic level is a functional status. It is not represented by any particular species. So who is doing that function of production? All should be coming under this. Okay, so that is number one important point. Second one. You have to also, given organism may occupy more than one trophic level simultaneously. So one must remember that the trophic level represents a functional level, not a species as such. So a given species may occupy more than one trophic level in the same ecosystem at the same time also. Okay, so we have to take into account all organisms in that trophic level. Okay. Generally, ecological pyramid of energy is always an upright pyramid. It can never be inverted. That is, it will be having a very broad base. Remember, ecological pyramids are made based upon that value in each trophic level. And always the first trophic level will be at the bottom and the last trophic level will be at the apex. So at the bottom, we are having the first trophic level, that is produces what much of energy? Remember, primary producers, plants, will convert only 1% of the energy in the sunlight available to them into NPP. Only 1% is converted into NPP, and that NPP is given to the next one, and only 10% is given to the next one. That's why we are having the energy, even though we are having 1 million joules of energy they are getting, they produce 10,000 joules, which is given, it become 1,000 to the primary consumer, secondary consumer, it become 100, and when it reaches the top carnivore, the fourth trophic level, it become very much reduced to 10 joules. Okay, so that is the character feature of pyramid of energy. It will never become inverted, it is always upright. But pyramid of biomass in a normal terrestrial ecosystem will be upright, but it can be also inverted. Why? In aquatic ecosystems, the producers are the small microscopic diatoms and other microbes, which will be utilizing all their energy to increase that number, that is in reproduction. They increase in number, but that increased number is eaten away by the primary consumers, which are all the fishes, mollusks, etc. Their strategy is to grow first, to increase their biomass, then only reproduce. So their biomass will be always high. So that's a paradox. The biomass pyramid in aquatic ecosystem is inverted. You will be having a small biomass of producers supporting a very high biomass of primary consumers. It is because that the producers here are very small microscopic organisms which use their energy not for increasing their biomass but for increasing number, and that increased number is continuously eaten away by the primary consumers, which are all having a strategy of increasing their biomass and not increasing number initially. Okay. So pyramid of biomass in aquatic ecosystem is always inverted, but it is generally upright in a terrestrial ecosystem. Okay. Now coming to the pyramid of number. Pyramid of number will be also generally upright, but pyramid of number can be inverted in two conditions. What are they? One, in single tree ecosystem, you may have a big tree, very single tree, one, number is one. You are taking only number, pyramid of number in each trophic level. So here, it is a single lonely tree growing in an area. So tree is only one. But in that tree, there will be hundreds and hundreds of insects and other worms growing on it, feeding on it. And depending upon them, there may be a small number of birds. So in one tree, there will be a number of consumers. So the pyramid is again inverted. Similar is the case with parasitic food chain. You may have only one host, and on that host, you will be having large number of parasites living. So again, the pyramid is inverted. So what I told you is that pyramid of energy is never inverted. It is always upright. Pyramid of biomass is generally upright but can be inverted, as is the case of pyramid of biomass will be generally upright but can be inverted, as in the case of aquatic ecosystems. And three, pyramid of number will be also generally upright but can be inverted, as is the case of single tree ecosystem or parasite food chain systems. Okay. So, ecological pyramids are helping us in understanding basically the functioning and the healthy nature of the ecosystem. But at the same time, it is having some limitations. What are the limitations an ecological pyramid will be having? One, it does not take into account that an organism can occupy two or more trophic levels because it is simply made up of food chains, and never consider that the same organism can occupy more than one trophic level. So it is not based upon food web. In nature, food chain never exists. It is only food web that is existing in nature. It does not accommodate a food web. 3. Saprotrophs, decomposers, they are not given any position. Where are they? Where they are occupying? It is not at all accommodated. So, saprophytes, which are the most important decomposers, though they are playing a very important role in ecosystem, they are not given any place. So, that is the third limitation or shortcoming. Clear? Now, we go to the next point in ecological succession. Just like organisms are evolving, ecosystem is also evolving, undergoing constant change, but this change is so slow. So it will take a lot of time to witness that change. Succession is a regular, constant, predictable, slow change that is orderly, just occurring in an orderly fashion, sequential, step by step, parallel with the changes in the physical environment. So, all communities will be undergoing changes in their composition and structure. Okay. And the succession is the interchange that is occurring in a orderly sequential fashion. Okay, there are two types of successions. We are having two types of successions. One, primary succession, that is where there is no life earlier. Life is starting for the first time. This succession is called primary succession. So here it is very, very slow, taking thousands of years. And why it is slow? Because there is no soil. So soil is to be formed. In succession, we give importance to plant community because only when plants come and establish themselves, you will be having animals. And only when animals are there, you will be having decomposers. So when plant community goes on changing, naturally animal communities and decomposers will change. So we give more importance to plants. And if the plants are to grow, there should be soil. Here, life is originated for the first time. So we call it as primary, and there is no soil, and for soil formation we take large number of years. Okay, it is slow. Though it is slow, it is regular, orderly. Okay, this primary succession, where they are all occurring, based upon that we can classify them into two. What are they? For example, we can classify them into hierarch and hydrarch. What is hierarch? Hierarch means succession occurring in dry area, very dry. There is no life, just like newly cooled lava or in rocks. Okay, so such areas are called, or succession in such areas are called hierarchical succession. The first community that is arriving in such a succession is called pioneer community. The first community that is developing or arriving is called pioneer community, and it is the lichens. That are all the pioneer communities. Why lichens? Because lichens can grow completely attached to the rocks, encrusted with the rocks, and they don't require water or soil. So they will be growing with moisture absorbed from atmosphere. So lichens, and they will be dead, and next generation will come. And after so many hundreds and hundreds of years of lichen generations, the dead material of the lichens will be producing some acidity that will be causing breaking in the rocks, that will hold a small amount of water, and their dead body will be also there, that is humus, or they will be forming a small amount of organic matter, so that a better developed variety of plants like a bryophyte may be coming. They will be continuing, okay, for hundreds of years. That will be paving the way for a better developed pteridophyte. Then angiosperms. And among angiosperms, you will be first having grasses, then bushes. Okay, so it will be forming what is called a scrub jungle. And finally, you will be having big trees, and thus it forms forest. The last community that is arriving is called the climax community. So it is from pioneer to climax. Various stages are occurring one after another in a regular orderly fashion. And all these stages are intermediary, transient stages called chiral stages. Each one is called a chiral stage, and the hierarchy, all the chiral stages together is called chirae. Okay. If it is in hydrarch, that is in watery medium, first the pioneer communities will be the planktons, very small microscopic organisms which are all lying on the surface, floating planktons. Then after hundreds of years, these planktons will be, see, it may be in a newly formed lake or a reservoir that hydrarch is occurring. There was no life earlier. So it is very deep, and these planktons will be paving their way for submerged plants. Then you may be having free floating plants. They have come to the surface. The depth of the lake will be continuously decreasing. So you will be having what is called reed swamp. That is plants which are having long internodes, reed swamps. Again, the lake through hundreds and hundreds of years become a small muddy place. So reed swamp will be replaced by marsh meadow. And marsh meadow will be paving way for small scrub jungles, and scrub jungles will be paving way for big trees. So finally, here also forests will be there. So in both hierarch and hydrarch, the pioneer community is growing towards the climax community. Climax community is the community which is best developed, which is in equilibrium with the environment. Okay. And the climax community will be remaining without change as long as the environment is also remaining change. During this progress, there is increase in the biomass, increase in the diversity, increase in interrelationship and interaction. Initially, only very few type of organisms will be there. But in a climax community, there will be so many different types of varieties of organisms. So, there will be all increase in their biomass, increase in diversity, increase in complexity, increase in interdependence and interaction. That is characteristic. And it occurred in extreme watery or in extreme dry condition and proceeded towards forest, which is mesic condition. So, from extreme to mesic, this is extreme. The condition is extreme here. Either too dry or too watery, but it proceeds towards average, that is called mesic. Clear? So this is characteristic of primary succession. Now, what about the secondary succession? Secondary succession is succession that is occurring in a place where there was life earlier. It is secondary. So, for example, a forest that was being cleared or it has been destroyed by forest fire or a farmland that has been abandoned. Okay, so in such areas or an area where there was flooding, all the existing organisms were removed or destroyed. So in such areas, life is again starting. This succession is faster. Why it is faster? Because there is already soil. There is also already life. And there is no such an order here. It is not showing this order. No regularity, no regular order. Why? Because in that soil, you will be having some propagules, that is spores, seeds, which will be germinating when the conditions become favorable. What type of soil is there? What is the environment? How much of water is available? So depending upon these factors, the community that is developing here will vary. It cannot be predicted as is in the case of primary. It is non-predictable. It depends upon a number of factors. Okay. Here in primary, it is predictable. If you interfere, if man interfere with any stage, say for example, you are all removing all the free-floating plants in a lake, what will happen? Succession again start from an earlier stage. It will start again from an earlier stage. Okay. That is characteristic of primary succession. There is an order, but there is no such orderly arrangement in a secondary succession. I think it is clear to you now. You have the phytoplankton stage, followed by submerged plant stage, submerged free-floating plant stage, reed swamp, marsh meadow, scrub jungle, and forest, which is the stages in aquatic, okay, hierarch succession. Whether it is in hierarch or hierarch, we have one important point to note. Succession leads to the mesic condition. Clear? Now, coming to the last part, namely nutrient cycling. Plants are all taking a lot of nutrients from the soil and atmosphere, and they utilize it for their organic material building, and this organic matter is cycled through the ecosystems and again returning back. They are all recycled. This recycling is called nutrient cycling or bio-geochemical cycle. This bio-geochemical cycle are of two types, gaseous and sedimentary. Okay, the gaseous cycles are having a gaseous reservoir, a reservoir for gaseous type of nutrients, that is nitrogen carbon cycle. They exist in the atmosphere. And for sedimentary cycle, the reservoir is earth crust. Sulfur, phosphorus are typical example for the sedimentary cycle. So the reservoir is earth crust. So what is the reservoir? Reservoir is having an important function. The reservoir is meeting with the deficit if there is an imbalance between uptake and recycle. That is, plants are ecosystem, biotic world is taking them from the abiotic world, and then they are all coming back. So uptake and recycle should be balanced. If there is an imbalance, that is met with, the deficit is met with the reservoir. Okay, so we are having two types of nutrient cycles. These nutrient cycles are thus capable of maintaining a considerable level of nutrients in the soil. The amount of nutrient in the soil will be varying from time to time. What much of nutrients are present in soil at a given time is called standing state. Don't confuse it between standing state and standing crop. Standing state is the amount of nutrients present in soil, whereas standing crop is the amount of organic matter present in a trophic level at a given time. Okay, now we are having two types of biogeochemical cycles or nutrient cycle. The first one is carbon cycle. Why we are taking carbon? Because it is a typical example for a perfect cycle. Gaseous cycles are almost perfect. That is, what is uptaken will be coming back. We know that atmosphere is having carbon dioxide from where plants are taking, but atmosphere is containing only 1% of the total global carbon. Okay, 71% of the carbon is dissolved in ocean. This ocean reservoir regulates the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. If there is excess amount of carbon dioxide, that will be getting dissolved in water of the sea, and if there is a deficit from sea, they escape out. Thus, there is a constant exchange between atmosphere and sea water. On the whole of the world, it is estimated that 4 into 10 raised to 13 kilogram of carbon is fixed annually in the biosphere through photosynthesis. Plants are taking this carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. It is the only function by which carbon dioxide is absorbed. The level of carbon dioxide is reduced in the atmosphere, and plants are utilizing for producing organic matter. At the same time, they are all breathing, and while breathing, carbon dioxide is returned. Now, the organic matter is eaten. They are all entering into the consumer chain, and when consumers are eating, they get the organic matter, carbon reaches them, and when these organisms are breathing, again it is going back to the atmosphere. And when the fecal materials, dead bodies of plants and animals are decomposed, they become the raw material for decomposition, and carbon is again completely returned back. Thus, what is taken from the atmosphere is perfectly given back. That is why it is a perfect cycle. But at the same time, this carbon cycle is one which is highly disturbed by human activities, anthropological activities. Why? Because we are all rapidly removing Dulling of forest, removing the forest areas, covering forest coverage is reduced very much. Remember, only plants can reduce the carbon dioxide. At the same time, we are all releasing more and more carbon dioxide to atmosphere. How? By burning fossil fuels, coal, petroleum, etc. So automobiles, factories, etc. are causing more and more rapid release of carbon dioxide. At the same time, carbon dioxide level intake is very much reduced. So carbon cycle is very much disturbed, affected by human activities. Okay. Now, phosphorus cycle is an example for sedimentary cycle. The reservoir is earth crust. See, carbon is essential for all living things because it is the backbone of all organic molecules. What is the role of phosphorus? Phosphorus is an important ingredient in the plasma membrane and other membrane systems. It is also required for the production of DNA and RNA. And it is the phosphate compound that is acting as energy currencies, just like ATP. So, phosphorus is very important. And plants will get these nutrients from soil. And how the soil will be getting these? By the weathering of rock minerals. The rocks in the earth crust gradually through thousands of years undergo weathering, breaking, and they will form soil solutions from which plants, producers are absorbing. That is called uptake. And from producers, by consuming, they will reach the food chain, and consumers, detritus will be getting them through the litter fall. Litter fall means the dead bodies or other fecal materials that are falling on the earth's surface, they will be reaching again the earth's surface or soil surface, and the detritus there will decompose them and again make them available in the soil. But at the same time, the soluble form of phosphorus will be dissolving in water, and through rainwater they may be undergoing leaching and going to the deeper layers. So it may be lost from the ecosystem. And after so many years, sometimes irregularly, when there is a chance, these rocks that are formed at the deeper layers of the soil may again become surface, and because of weathering, they again may become available to the soil. But anyhow, what is uptaken is not immediately completely recycled. So there is some loss of phosphorus. That's why this phosphorus is a typical example for imperfect cycle. Most of the sedimentary cycles are imperfect cycles also. And phosphorus cycle and carbon cycles are having some differences. There are three main differences. What are they? Let us see. One, in the case of carbon cycle, there is respiratory exchange. That is, we breathe out carbon dioxide and plants take them. So there is a respiratory exchange. Whereas in the case of phosphorus, there is no respiratory exchange. Two, atmospheric input of phosphorus through rainfall. That is, through the rainfall from the earth atmosphere or from other parts, not much phosphorus is reaching the earth crust. Okay. Third one, there is no gaseous exchange. Phosphorus is never exchanged in the form of gas between organism and the environment. It is always the form of dissolved form that plants are taking or coming back. Okay. Thus, phosphorus cycle and carbon cycle are having some basic differences. Okay. Now, coming to the last part, namely ecosystem services. What is that term meaning? So, I told you that there are four fundamental functions in any ecosystem. Even a pond is having all these functions performed. What are they? I will repeat: production, decomposition, energy flow, and mineral recycling. Okay, or biogeochemical cycle. So when ecosystem is performing all these functions without any break, there will be a product. What is that product? What is the ultimate result of all these activities? That is what is called ecosystem services. We are getting either a service or we are getting a product. And what will be the value of that product or that service? That was calculated for the first time by Robert Constanza and his colleagues. In 1997, he has estimated that the total value of all the services performed by our ecosystem will be round about 33 trillion American dollars. 33 trillion American dollars. That's the value of services produced by ecosystem in 1 year. What are the services it is giving? See, we are having a forest ecosystem, purifying air and water, mitigating, that is controlling drought and flood. It is performing nutrient cycle so that soil fertility is retained, provide habitat for wildlife, maintain biodiversity, pollinating crops, provide storage for carbon, and also provide aesthetic, cultural, spiritual values. So, we cannot actually find the value, find the cost. You cannot put the price of each of these services that ecosystem is giving. But anyhow, for the most important fundamental functions, Constanza has put a price tag and the total value will be 33 trillion American dollars. Remember that it is almost double to the value of global gross national product, GNP, of the entire world countries together. And of this, which is the most costly product of nature? Soil. Because soil formation accounts for 50%. So soil is the most precious material. Ecosystem is producing through thousands and thousands of years. It has produced soil and is maintaining that soil. And other services like recreation and nutrient cycling, they will be accounting only for less than 10%. And climate regulation and habitat for wildlife, they are accounting only for 6%. So this is the total value. The value of ecosystem services is almost double the value of GNP. Okay, that was calculated by Robert Constanza and others of US. And with that, I come to the conclusion of the discussion of this chapter, ecosystem. I hope almost all points are covered and it will be finding easy for you to follow. And with that, we come to the conclusion of the discussion of the entire topic of our first year and second year zoology part. So thank you all. Thank you very much. We will meet sometime in future. Until then, goodbye.